RomeBills.com. Thank you for coming back to my page and checking out my community content. It is catered to young people and parents, but coming from being an '83 baby, I kind of think about life and how I've been working with teenagers throughout these last 21 years and seeing the different generations and what they go through. If you're following my story, The Fall of Rome, while locked up, having 2 years to serve, my face healing in the first month, I had to come to terms of getting better. And I didn't know really how to, but being locked up and being in a little small cell, you have a lot of time to think, but I knew I wanted to get better in my heart and my mind. And if I labeled this anything, it's going to be labeled Broken Hearts Still Need Love. And I knew I was brokenhearted. I knew I had gone through some things, and I knew I was struggling with depression because that turned into suicide ideation. And so I was ready to move past some things. And I'm working with students now who have depression. It's not easy. Every case is different. Some just go through depression. And when I'm working with students in my class, before they come to my class, I kind of interview them all. And it's not a one-way road. It's a two-way street. It's a two-way road. As in, you ask me about my life, I'll be honest, but because they're going to be honest with me about their life and how they got to where they are. Remember, I work with kids in alternative schools, at-risk students in general, even just students who are not in trouble. But I ask them all the same thing, and I ask them this one question. And parents don't usually ask their kids this, but I ask my students, when's the last time you cried? When's the last time you cried tears? And a lot of my students, I do my best to build rapport to them. So at this point, they trust me. So they tell me, like, I cried last night, Mr. Rome. And I said, well, why did you cry? What happened? What's going on? And the stories just roll out of each student. And I asked my kids, when's the last time they cried? And they would tell me. And then that would open up the floodgates for them to cry more, because they would start telling me things and just be like, what's making you cry this deep? And they're like, I just never really been able to express and tell people what's going on and how I got to this point, and sadly, a lot of kids just need a love and a hug, like somehow something so basic and so easy to give, but their experience of love and hug and affection may have come through trauma. So as a prevention specialist, handling those things appropriately and professionally is, as much as I want to give you a hug, I can, but I'm going to help you build. I'm going to help you get better. I'm going to help you with those broken pieces, because I was a broken kid when I was locked up. And being broken, man, I'm talking about, like, I thought about killing myself almost every day. And there would be times like, I think today's the day. And then it never happened. Depression is a serious issue facing our society right now. The numbers for depression for adolescents is 3.2% of American kids here, kids in America, are struggling with depression. Some of them have major depression episodes. And when I mean major, I'm talking about major, like deep, as in you could find them already cutting themselves. Not all people with depression cut themselves. There's other ways to people express themselves while they're depressed, and some people don't, but what I have kids do, how I help them build, besides listening to that one song that makes them cry, right? Ask anybody had a song where they listen to and they start crying, and you be crying so good and so hard, you put play again and you run that song back and you cry more, and then you're like, I think I'm done crying it out. And it's funny because in class I ask kids this and they all laugh. They're like, it's true, Mr. Rome, and they name all these songs they listen to that make them cry. But I say, what do we do when we're done crying? We were crying about certain things that have happened to us or things that are in our mind and our heart. But at some point I asked the student, how long do you want to stay like this? See, here's another fact, that there are more adolescent females that struggle with depression than young boys. Not to put my boys in a different category as far as that issue. No, they do face it. It's just, I don't agree with labels, so I don't like to label each kid that they have it. Every kid's going to go through challenges. Every kid's going to have something they have to get over, a hurdle, obstacle, a wall. But I don't want them to stay in a place where they don't want to try in life no more. And so for any young kid, listen, I'm not gonna lie, I'm trying to change their environment. I'm trying to change their picture. I also ask them what they watch and what they're into. I ask them, when's the last time they've been outside in the sun? And first, the fact that, I don't recommend you self-medicating. being in a treatment center when I was young, after I was locked up, one of the years they put me in a treatment center, but I remember meeting with the therapist and she tried to medicate me. And I declined taking pills, you know. I, I I take the words of this young girl. This young girl, I asked her how she was dealing with her depression, and she looked at me. She's like, Mr. Rome, I'm just thugging it out right now. I'm like, girl, what do you know about being a thug? But I felt what she was saying in here because, like, for me, I had to do that same way. No pills, no weed, no drinking, just locked up in my cell thinking, all right, I don't want to stay in this way of thought process of being so sad for the things that have happened to me. Things happen to us, things hurt us, people hurt us, and we sometimes hurt ourselves. So I try to get my kids to the place of loving themselves. Remember, broken hearts still need love. They just need authentic love, a genuine love. And that's where I come from. So I have them come up to my board in my classroom. I have them draw the biggest heart they could draw on the board. And I say, what are all the things that you wish you had inside your heart and your mind? What are things you wish you were or expressed? What emotions did you wish you had? Or, well, and they start just writing all these things, you know, and it's funny, wish they had. And I've kind of known them through a few days and through our sessions. So I'm knowing like these kids are amazing. And again, there's something different about trauma kids. I have to look up what is going on because trauma kids have a superpower and ability. It's just their potential and what they're doing is in the wrong path of life. So if I could get them to get into who they are in a special way, in a good way, they have the ability to change how they feel about themselves and love themselves, even with the broken heart they may have, and start to allow their heart to heal. Valentine's Day is almost here. I'm trying to do a heart on my fat fingers. But shout out to all my youth kids, all my teenagers, all my adolescents, and parents out there. Love your kids. If you have kids in your life, give them a hug. Let them know you love them. Let them know you're proud of them. Let them know that you want them to do good in life. But also, if they do struggle with depression, let them know that you do want to help them. If they do need to speak to somebody that's not a parent, maybe a counselor, maybe a youth director or youth pastor, maybe a youth mentor. There's mentorship programs out there. There's a lot of school districts that have mentorship programs where parents come and mentor. I know for my students, all they needed, I don't want to say all they needed, but for them to start the process, they needed to talk to somebody. And I love talking to kids, man, because they're such beautiful souls and there's such an innocence in them, but it's been already like not all damaged, but you could see their innocence is slowly being robbed, their creativity and their beautiful mind by things. And so, yeah, you know, depression can eat all that up. It eats up who you are, who you're really supposed to be. It eats up your love you have. And I remember one kid, you know, I'm not gonna say his name, but he was a senior. He was a tall boy. He's a big tall boy, and I remember introducing myself, and you know, in that first hour, just introducing what I do, you know, what my profession is, and how I teach my classrooms. And he's like, "Yeah, when are you gonna do a class? I want to go in your class." I'm like, "Yeah, for sure." But I'm like, you know, what's going on? Like, how did you end up here? What happened? You know? And he's like, well, you know, I'm here. I know why I'm here. You know, I just struggled with some things, but you know, I just been struggling with my relationship with my mom. This is a young man. And he's like, and I'm like, I'm all ears because I was a mama's boy, even though my dad raised me to run it, you know, and my dad was raising me to be a strong young man. But I had this, I'll be truthful for you. A lot of us don't know how to describe it, but yeah, I was a lover by heart. It's just the streets and the world I lived in raised me to be a fighter. I remember asking him, you know, like, does he live with his mom or dad? He's like, I live with my dad. I'd never really lived with my mom. And then, like, you know, they had kind of went through a separation. But my dad told me last week, and he's like, I just found this out. But my dad said my mom struggled with postpartum depression. And I was just a newborn baby, and she didn't want to really do those motherly things. He said, my dad told me your mom didn't want to carry you. She would just barely feed you, make sure you were living, but there was no connection. And mom and dad weren't together, so I'm sure part of it has to do with their relationship, but and he goes, I was over there last month and we got in an argument. I just didn't understand why she didn't love me. Why didn't she want to love me? What did I do so wrong that I cannot be loved? Now, this is an 18-year-old young man, bigger than me. And I'm pretty tall, but he was taller than me, more stout. And he starts crying in front of me and just bawling. And my heart is breaking for him, but I'm keeping my composure because I want to help him. And he says, I love my mom and I love my dad. I just don't know what to do. And I said, I'm sorry to hear that, and I said, but one thing I could tell you for sure, that you don't have to love like your mom have loved. You can love like you're supposed to love. You can love yourself, and you can love your girlfriend. You had a sweet girlfriend. You can love your dad, and you can even love your mom, even though she doesn't know how to love. Don't base the way you love off of other people. Love how you know how to love and how you're supposed to love. And I said, it's okay. And he's like, it's okay that I love people. And I'm like, yeah, it's okay to be a good person. It's okay to love people and show them that you're genuinely care for them and their life and who they are. Can that be burned? Can it be taken advantage of? Yeah, but as you get older, you know where to spend that love and who to give it to. And that moment, I knew that boy, that part of him, the depression his mom had was seeping in him, and he had a light depression episode, because he was smoking. And that's one thing I try to get my kids to stop doing, is stop self-medicating. Because when you get high, and it does numb you, and you feel good. It does. Anybody who's gotten high from weed versus pills knows there's just a little bit more of a relaxation, but the high don't last. And when you're done high, if you didn't cry while you're high, you will cry when you're done being high, if you do go down that thought process of why you're in pain and hurting. And so my encouragement to young people facing depression and having these episodes is, at some point, you have to ask yourself, even as a young person, how long do I want to stay like this? And I knew while being locked up, I didn't want to stay depressed. I just didn't. It didn't help being these stories in this one, because it's very hard. You can't just quick talk depression, Some people are medicated clinically. They're given medication to take to help them with it. And I have kids like that. And I don't want to get into politics and the medical industry. I try to help kids of where they're at and still encourage them. It's okay. Your doctors ask you if you're getting better, get better. If you could, at some point in your life, get off of medication, stop self-medicating, because kids can stop smoking weed. It just gets harder when you start popping pills. The addictions, in my opinion, is a much stronger addiction. So broken hearts still need love. And I won't lie to you, my belief system and what I believe in spiritually helped me deal with my depression as well. I was reading the Bible, and I was reading about love and grace and mercy and all these things that I wanted and I've heard before. I just didn't kind of live by those principles and things. So I don't want this to be something where you take as that you could deal with depression in one day. You can't, but you could start addressing it just starting one day with deciding to be like, okay, I have these episodes, but I don't want to keep having them. I don't want to have them in front of people. I don't want to have them in an inopportune time. Some people don't know how to handle people crying. We all know that one awkward person. It's quite breathtaking when I'm talking about some of the stories from a stage in front of hundreds of kids. When I go do these presentations in schools and I start talking about these issues. The first time I remember, it hit me like a ton of bricks, because I'm on stage talking to junior high, and I think it was 7th grade at this time. They brought all in 7th graders, so it was about 600 7th graders. And as I was talking about parts of my story and working past my mental health and, not quitting and not giving up, because how I'm talking on here and how I talk on stage are two different ways, but I started seeing kids in the audience crying, junior high kids. Blew my mind, because I was like, my words are triggering something, or it's making them think about something, or they're crying. After I was done speaking, I usually try to connect with kids after. They come to my table, check it out. I got a few merch items on for my brand, but kids need love. Adolescents need love. They need someone who will listen to them from their world. Let them tell you about their world, not your world. Let them tell you what's going on in their day-to-day life that they're having a hard time with. Grownbuilds.com. Thank you for coming back to my pages.